This is like the third time I've started recording this. I'm going to tell you guys about my near-death experience. It's going to be hard to get through because I am still processing it. I only know that it was a near-death experience by looking into other people's NDEs and realizing the similarity. So, I was at my friend's house, and we were smoking something that I shouldn't have been smoking. It was not cannabis, and it was poison. And it's very hard to describe actually what was happening because for a good portion of it, I was not there. I was elsewhere, which you'll come to learn what that means. And all of a sudden, I remember my friend putting his hand right there and pushing. And that action for many years after this deceived me into thinking that something else had happened because I had no idea. I had no frame of reference for anything that you're about to hear. I still really don't. But as soon as he did that, I went up out of my body. I was no longer present. And I was in this realm that was such just complete, unadulterated, unrelenting love that there's no words to describe it. It's beyond the word love. It had a language. It had the ability to communicate. It was all encompassing. I was but a part of it. And in this love, I identified the parts of me that were also from this love. If this doesn't make sense, I'm sorry. I don't know how else to describe this kind of stuff. For like 5 years after this happened, I thought I was insane until I read other people's experiences and realized that I'm not alone. So this is very hard, but there was such a love that I learned that I too am part of that. And it told me that I am that love, and then I was filled with this peace that was just, it like connected from right here to everything else. There was no boundary really between myself and everything. And that peace lasted for a few minutes after I came back. But then I remember, I think this was coming back to reality for a second. My friend, I was either sitting or laying down on a couch or a bed or something. I can't really remember. And I remember him saying, "No, we're not done." And then I left again, but this time was different. This time I was shown things that were really hard to witness. And I felt every bad thing that I have ever done. I felt it hit me, literally hit me, like getting slapped thousands of times. And I found myself in this realm that was just complete isolation. I'm sorry. This is going to be really hard to get through. while I was there, I witnessed millions of my own death. Uh, but when I say mine, I wasn't always this person you see. I sometimes one of the times I was a spider and it got flushed down the toilet. This sounds ridiculous. I'm sorry. This sounds ridiculous. And another time I was this person, and it was at that same house, only something different happened than was happening that day. I had brought a few bags of that substance with me in this experience. It was like a separate reality. So channel off this reality, and this is what follows is what happened in this. I had brought a couple of those packages with me, and I was sitting in my friend's room, and there was a third person there besides myself, he and myself, and I handed them to him, and I realized this other person was law enforcement, and I ran to the bathroom. I fell because this house was trashed, and I remember the mess around me, and I went to grab for something. I don't know what it was. I went to grab for something, and all of a sudden I remember somebody drawing down on me and shooting, and then I remember my friend's wife saying, we'll call him Bob. Bob, what did you do? And then his son was crying. And I remember Bob standing over me. This is like as real as anything I've experienced now. And he was laughing. But then that disappeared. And I was back into that void. And I remember just knowing that I was going to be stuck there. It was like a black hole. It was a black hole. And it pulled in on me like this. And it was not a good place to be. And I found myself, for the first time in my life, I found myself praying. And I realized that in order to get out of this, I had to take that feeling that I had the first time I left myself and identify it with parts of this being that you see in front of me. See, prior to this, I hated myself. I loathed every bit of myself, every iota, and that held through for quite a few years after this experience. On top of feeling just absolutely insane, because nobody believed me. It's not really, I didn't believe myself. It wasn't until years after this experience that I actually pieced together what it was that had happened. So I found myself praying and loving parts of myself that I had previously hated. And every time I did that, it was like climbing a ladder to this light above me that was a well. Was a well, but it looked like, if you're deep inside a well, I'm assuming I've never been in a well, but what you would see above you, and I climbed towards it. Although it wasn't really like physically climbing, it felt like it because there was no separation between physicality and ether, I guess, whatever is beyond. And I did it. I climbed out, and while I had been down there, everything was just constant pain. It was the most present pain I have ever felt. And I felt a lot of pain. But so when I came back, I was in a shower with all of my clothes on. In a cold shower. And I got up, and this is in Joliet, Illinois, in the middle of winter. I got up and I ran outside, and I sat down in the middle of the road. I was just, I didn't know what had happened. And then, so my friend called me back in. I think I was crying out there. My thoughts were just, I was so afraid. I've never experienced something like that. I had never. And then I came back, and it was just like, and I got up and I ran. I ran outside, and I didn't even feel the cold. No, I did feel the cold, but the just ability to feel this cold was beautiful. And my friend called me in. He's like, come on, we gotta get you dried off. And I still didn't know what had happened. He didn't tell me till years afterwards. And once I settled, once that just shock was out of me, I remember that peace. Or maybe that was prior. I don't know, but somewhere in this, I recall my friend's mother-in-law came home, and I didn't understand anything but that peace. And I went up to her and I said, I meant it. And I didn't know why I was saying this, but I said, peace be with you. Like I wanted the peace that I had to also be with her. And she looked at me like I was crazy. This realm is not a great place to be. And people don't understand love here. People only understand hate. They might feel love, but they don't understand it. And when confronted with it, they're frightened. I think a lot, but eventually that peace faded. No, it really didn't. I shoved it away. That peace has been there since then. Something that day changed in me. Something so very real. But story's not over, because do you remember that death that I told you I experienced? So my values changed that day. Just hold on, I'll be right back. Whatever. My values changed that day to such an extreme degree that next time I went over to that friend's house, I looked around me and I saw something completely different than I had every other time I'd been there. I saw I saw children growing up being set up to fail. I looked around myself and was disgusted. And I called CPS, which I regret that, because at that time I thought that they were there to help, and they're not. But so my friend found out about that, and obviously we were no longer friends. Now, fast forward a couple of months, and I felt really bad for destroying his life. Although, looking back, he kind of destroyed his own life. I was only the catalyst in trying to do the right thing. And so I called him up, and I said, hey, man, I'm sorry. And he said the weirdest thing I've ever heard. He said, it's okay. And he said, hey, we'll call it Scooby Snacks. You know Scooby Snacks, which is a very specific brand of that stuff that we had been using. And it only came from where I was living at the time, which was in a different county than Joliet and whatever, my friend. And so I said, yeah, I know that. And he said, can you go pick up 2 bags and bring it to me? I said, okay. I just wanted to be friends. And I was an addict at the time too. So I did. I went and I went to get it. And as I was driving out, I realized that I was living out the beginning of that end I had experienced, in his bathroom. I realized that I was being set up, and that if I went there would be a third person in the room. And the second that I broke that stuff out, I would be faced with the decision to either get arrested or run. And I still went. But I went with that knowledge, and I went in a different vehicle. And when I got to his neighborhood, I cruised around there for a second, and guess what? Down all of the little alleyways by his house, they were parked sheriffs. No way. Turns out that stuff had just been made a felony. So, just the synchronicity of this made me go no, and I drove away. And as I was driving away, I'm thinking to myself, now, did this really just happen? Did I actually just change the outcome based on what I thought was an hallucination? Was that about to happen in this waking life? And then my friend calls me, and I don't answer, and he keeps calling me, and I said to him, I'm smarter than you. Don't ever try to set me up again. And he got so mad. He kept texting me, and he's like, F you, this, that, the other. And then his mask fell off. And I still feel crazy talking about this, because I am, for all intents and purposes, a centered, in reality, grounded type of person. Yet what I had just experienced was the outcome changing. It was like retro causality just to the max. It blew my mind, and it blew up my car too, because on the way home, my vehicle stopped working. That was a frickin' trip, man. And this was 2 months or so after the NDE. It was just every inch that I traveled towards his house lined up. It was like these realities were zippering towards each other. I can't even explain it without sounding insane, but I swear to you, had I not listened to my intuition, I wouldn't be here to talk about it. So that was really when I realized that what had happened to me wasn't just brain chemistry, wasn't just, drugs. There was something to it. And then, just like last week, I'm listening to the song Skating Away on the Thin Ice of a New Day by Jethro Tull. And he starts, one of the lines is, and for those who choose to stay, will they live just one more day to do the things they should have done? And my gosh, I just broke down that he described 40 years before I was born, 30, maybe 20. God, I'm old now. The experience that I had. And I realized that there's been just an ongoing realization that there's something besides this life of pain and just hatred, and there's something beyond it, man. And you can choose the love of it or you can reject it. But because of the fact that everything beyond is love, if you reject that, it's complete isolation. You don't want to be in that isolation. But being encompassed in that love made me realize that the person I had been was not worthy of feeling that love because I didn't reflect it. And it took the better part of 10 years and near fatal drug addictions to see beyond that. But once I pulled myself out again of this like mortal destruction, once I pulled myself out of that and this mortal self-destruction, I was able to reflect it, and things got better. I know that sounds so pedantic, but things just got better. And I learned through researching, there's a channel that I watch, I can't remember what it's called right now, but I learned that most people don't choose to come back. And I did. And because of that, I need to make the best. I need to do the best that I can, because otherwise, why did I come back? I'd be selling myself so incredibly short. We all chose to be here. Don't sell yourself short, man. You're here to do wonderful things. You're here to share a gift that only you have. Do that. And do it with everything that you are. And, I speak that advice, but yet here I am. I struggle with that daily. I go to my job, and what am I adding? Not very much. I'm doing a job, but am I adding anything to society? No, not really. I'm being just a part of the machine. Don't be just a part of the machine. I'm trying to step out of that by making this video because, I'm sure there's going to be follow-ups with clarifications because this was a rambly thing, but I have to share it. I was given like gifts. Yeah, man. I don't know. Pardon all the pauses. There's just so much to say and no way to say it. Oh, so the other. Okay, so obviously that friend and I, after that last thing, were truly no longer friends. And I couldn't really process what had happened until I knew from his perspective what had happened on this reality, in this reality, because if I don't know that, how do I process it in this reality, you know? And he said that I overdosed. That was pretty hard to hear. I had an idea of what had happened. And hearing that I overdosed, for that time, it trivialized the experience because it negated what I thought had happened. He had put his hand here, and there's a lot of that and like blessings and stuff. And I don't want to get into what I thought had happened, but hearing that I had overdosed negated it until I learned about near-death experiences. And since then, like I've had a couple of kids who were just the closest thing to experiencing that realm of complete and unadulterated love. And I spend every day trying to be that love. And I suggest that everybody does that because this world has become filled with parasitic hatred. Hatred, I call it that because it infects people and feeds off of them. And they don't even know why they hate. Oftentimes, they don't even know the subject of their hatred, the object of it, It's parasitic and it's destructive. And this world reflects back to us what we put into it. So let's start putting something better into it. Because, gosh darn it, I didn't come back here to be surrounded by hatred. I came back to try and change that, I guess. I don't even know what I'm saying right now. I feel so naked. I've never told this, literally the entire world. I just told the entire world the most personal thing that has ever happened to me. Enjoy.